Okay. Gina, you ready?
Yes.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. If we could all stand, say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's a good one. All right, that made me happy. Everyone was in unison. All right, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Rogers? Present. Trustee Reinders? Present. Trustee Pazmino?
Present.
Trustee Consolino? Present. Trustee Fialco?
Present.
Trustee Laha? Present. Mayor Yukich?
Present. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
I'd like to make an amendment to the agenda. I'd like to take from the consent agenda accounts payable, move it down to I4.
What?
You don't want it the first one, you want it to be the fourth one? For the consent agenda?
I would like from the consent agenda accounts payable, H1, move to I4.
Also, there's no one against that, it would be just something you vote on separately.
So we're just going to put down legislation.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of May 12th, 2021 Village Board meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Go to the next one. There is a motion to approve the minutes of May 26, 2021 Village Board meeting.
So motioned.
Second.
Consolino and Trustee Pazmino. Is there any discussion on this one? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Number 3, is there a motion to approve the minutes of June 9th, 2021 Village Board meeting?
So moved. I second.
Trustee Reinder and Trustee Consolino.
It was Laha.
Is it-
Laha. It was Laha.
Oh, okay. Trustee Lahat. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Reports and communications from mayor and other officers. I would like to take a moment to remind residents to continue locking their cars and garages during the summer months. Breaking into open cars and garages is a crime of opportunity and can be addressed easily by remembering to lock your doors. If you have any concerns or see something suspicious, do not hesitate to call the Will County Sheriff's 911. They hit a couple of the subdivisions in the last couple of weeks. It seems like whenever some of the residents have big parties, the next night the cars are getting vandalized. So if you could please lock your car doors, because if you don't and you leave a garage door open, or they also have access to your house. Next, the use of ATVs and dirt bikes on village streets, trails, and in parks is dangerous and a nuisance. We have received an increase of complaints and concerns from residents regarding the use of these vehicles, and it must stop. Staff has drafted and proposed an ordinance that will be brought forward to the Public Service and Safety Committee next week. The ordinance will give the village and the Will County Sheriffs more authority and also increases the penalty for such violations. I look forward to bringing it before the board next month. So next, we'll go to the trustees. We'll go to Trustee Fialko.
All right, for the fest, sir, I've got the report for the fest is that we've made some movement towards looking at the location and possibly mitigating some of the parking issues that we've had in the past. That is top of the agenda for the fest committee. The location and the also we are looking at possibly including, I'd like everybody to know, local talent this time. So those are on the top of the agenda for the fest for 2022. In addition to that, I'd like to thank somebody in this room. He has been around for a long time. He spent 20 years with EMA. He has taken and helped out tirelessly with the fest. He brought in Lima for the flyover for the last fest, and he is the superintendent of parks and facilities for the last 10 years. And I'd like to say thank you to John Robinson right there for everything that he's done for this community that sometimes is overlooked. We have pillars in our community. We have people who are assets to the village that sometimes need an extra round of applause, and I'd like to give that to John Robinson today. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Fialko. Trustee Reinders.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few things to report. We finally had our first Parks and Recs Committee, which was, so nice to get to meet everybody. We talked, basically, didn't accomplish anything, but talked a lot about what we would like to see our accomplishments for the park moving forward. So it was very nice to meet everyone. And a couple of events that are coming up that I'd like to bring to everybody's attention. The 4th annual Chalk It Up Fest that's coming Saturday, August 7th from 3 to 7. Everyone is welcome, and this is a free contest available to all ages. The band, Johnny Ruster and the Beach Bums, they were supposed to be at the Homerfest, but they actually backed out because of weather, but they are promising to be at the Chalk It Up Fest. Food trucks will be there, and you must register to participate. The forms are available on the village website. The Goonies is the feature film for this Friday in the park. Oh my God. This is a great film. Don't miss it.
Yes, it is.
This will be starting at dusk, and starting at 7:30, the food trucks will be there to be able to purchase food to get ready for the event. Joey's and the Creamery, from what I understand, are going to be there this time. And again, that starts at dusk. Another near and dear to my heart for the park is planting natives. When we first became co-chairs of the Parks Committee, I walked out there and I looked at this field of what was supposed to be these beautiful wildflowers, and it was a field of beautiful weeds. And I had John Robinson cut them down, and I said, if you cut them, they're gonna grow. And sure enough, they did grow. So actually on August 7th as well, from 3 to 4:30, the Forest Preserve District is going to be out there giving a class on why native plants are better and more important to birds, bees, and butterflies. And again, you have to register, and they're meeting at the pavilion. And that's my report.
Thank you. Trustee Pasmino.
Thank you, Mayor. Reporting for the Environment Committee. A couple days ago, myself, Trustee Consolino, and a couple other members of the Environment Committee went around judging and taking notes for the Community and Nature and Harmony Awards. I'm not a big, huge flower guy, but we saw a ton of yards that were absolutely something you see in movies, and I just can't believe that we have that in our beautiful Homer Glen. Those awards will be coming out and announced in September, so everybody stay tuned because there's going to be a lot of pictures and you're going to be very pleased. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee. Next one would be Trustee Rogers.
No report.
Thank you. Trustee Laha.
I am reporting for the Ability Awareness Committee. Well, first, I just want to reiterate what Rosie said. It was really nice to hear from our really long-standing park committee members. They had a lot to say, and it was really nice to hear them be able to speak freely and give us some really great ideas. So we're really lucky to have them. Back to the Ability Awareness Committee, we had our first official meeting, so that was really nice. I think it went well. I'd like to encourage residents to come to the meetings and speak to us, meet us in person, and actually see what we're doing and what we're planning. We have some really great things, and I really, really would love to have community input on that. Let's see, our website has been updated to include the committee's mission statement and the purpose, and that was recommended by our residents, so I want to thank them for that. I think that's really beneficial. We're currently working on the survey we plan to send to residents for feedback and are planning to get that out before the next meeting. The survey will be emailed as well as be located on the tab for the Ability Awareness Committee on the village website. Stacy is our staff liaison, and I just want to give her a shout out. She has been working so hard and doing an amazing job with the survey, and it's her first time, my first time, so we're learning together. So I just want to say thank you, Stacy. I see you out there. The Disability Pride Month photo contest is still going, and I encourage all residents and local businesses to participate and send in their accessibility finds around town. A winner will be chosen randomly from all the submissions for a prize the first week of August. Family nominations are still being taken for the Disney Pop Tab Challenge. So we'll be taking those nominations until August 16th. And there is a form that you can find on the village website to continue to fill out those nominations. I recently virtually attended the National Disability Independence Day event, which was a discussion of ADA laws and their effects on web development. I found it really interesting, and I have some great information to share with the committee and some more ideas on how we can continue to move Homer Glen towards universal accessibility. And that is my report.
Thank you. Trustee Consolino.
Hi, everybody. For Environment Committee, as Trustee Pasmino just said, yesterday I accompanied him and our senior planner and project manager, Melissa King, along with one of our committee members, to go and look at the homes of the contestants for the Community, Nature, and Harmony Award. Properties that we got to tour were definitely phenomenal. A lot of hard work goes into these residential properties and into the grounds and Annunciation Greek Orthodox Church. One of the things that struck me was how some of these residents are dedicating parts of their property to actually restoring prairie land and promote native plant growth. This kind of landscape truly represents our village's mission and our environmental goals as a community. We should have the winners announced by next month or by September. For public safety, we were contacted this week by the Will County Health Department that a mosquito tested positive for West Nile virus in Homer Glen. This is the first reported case in Will County. Will County put out a press release in conjunction with Illinois Department of Public Health, and it includes precautionary measures for residents. In regard to diesel truck parking complaints that were brought to our attention earlier this month, all parties involved have been put on notice, and both the Village of Homer Glen and Will County are being mindful of the properties, as well as these properties have been notified of what the ordinances are and the fines for this type of violation. The Gas and Wash property on 159th Street and Gauger Road was informed that they must also put up signage to deter this type of diesel truck parking. I've also received a few complaints in reference to what the mayor was talking about earlier regarding teenagers riding around recklessly and creating damage with their ATVs. Parents, I cannot emphasize enough to please be mindful of your children. I've seen actual video that residents are sending me of teens speeding through Heritage Park, driving on private properties, and destroying lawns and landscaping. More importantly, they are endangering themselves and everyone in their path. Village is currently working on a potentially steep fine for anyone who is caught driving recklessly around on an ATV. If this fine is meant to deter this kind of behavior and to protect our residents as well as their properties. Also, due to the expressed concerns of vandalism from residents, we will be having a safety meeting with residents, some of our village staff, as well as representatives from the Will County Sheriff's Office. We did this as well last summer. We will be posting the information on the website, also on social media, but right now our tentative date is August 12th. On a final note, I would like to add there will be another update coming soon to the Long Run Creek status report, and it will be able to be viewed by all residents on the village website. This concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be village attorney.
No report, Your Honor.
Thank you. Next, do public safety.
No report, Your Honor. They covered it. Thank you.
All right, Joe, do we have any public comment? Thank you, sir. Jim O'Mara, if you can limit it to 3 minutes, we would appreciate it.
That'll be fine, but I need a little administrative work from you folks first before my time starts.
You need what?
I need some answers from you that I requested and I have not
This
received
isn't
from...
question and answer right now. This is just public comment.
Well, then I can't talk to what I'm talking about without the stuff that I asked from your acting village manager to be able to prove my points.
All right, well, the village manager isn't here tonight because his grandmother passed away.
Oh, okay, well, this was sent over 2 weeks ago, requesting in written from him 5 questions to be answered so I could prove my point here of what's going on.
All right.
Can anybody here, can the village attorney, if I read them off, give me the answers?
I think that's the purpose of public comment, sir. I'm not,
Okay, it's
I'm not showing
usual,
any
you're just
disrespect.
not going to let me talk. I can't have the proper information.
What I would, if you could hold on a second, what I would suggest is that at the next board meeting, we ensure that the interim village manager gets you the answers, and then you can address it at the next public comment. But I don't want to put you in a position where you're trying to make points.
No, it's your ordinances.
You're trying to make points on things that you don't have the information yet. I want to make sure you have all the information before you're addressing the board.
Well, I thought it was 2 weeks would have been more than enough time for him to get me the information. Okay, so that's, all right, fine. My 3 minutes is starting right now. Okay, Gas and Wash has been in violations of their PUD since they opened up there. Okay, this has been an ongoing situation. I have been sending in complaints and nothing has been done about it. That's been verified by your acting village manager that no citations have been fined against Gas and Wash for violating the idling and overnight parking ordinance that their PUD is amended on. This has been going on since that place opened up. I have video evidence of it. I've sent it in, and none of your enforcement officers have done anything about it. Okay? Mr. McHenry stated emphatically in open discussion here that he would never allow that to happen. When you were given photographic evidence from his other shops for 7 days in a row, trucks parking overnight on his facility, you guys authorized a truck stop at the western entrance to your village. Now you're worried about diesel? I went to the environmental meeting. They're more worried about the flowers than the diesel. All right? So he said it wouldn't be allowed. He said his staff personnel would not allow it. I was up there taking pictures of a trucker that was violating it, and one of their staff personnel came out and confronted me. What are you doing? I said, none of your business. Oh, you must be one of the neighbors. I left, took pictures of the truck, didn't do anything to the truck driver, went to my house. She went and woke that truck driver up from his sleep, put him in her personal vehicle and drove her through Shady Hollow till she found my vehicle, and then had him get out of the car to confront me. Okay, that turned out real bad for him. Okay, so this is what's going on. There's violations up there on a regular basis. You folks did it. You were told everything that was going to happen is happening, and you're not willing to do anything about it. All right? You were warned. And then again, like I said, it's going on all over your community. Go behind Meyer any night and find the truck drivers that are sleeping back there. Okay? Couple, like last week, I was going over for a tire appointment. Took a wind through there. Couple scantily clad ladies walking out from behind Myers. Okay? What were they doing? Delivering Girl Scout cookies or working on merit badges? Okay? So you were told this was going to happen. Mayor, you were told to your face this would happen, and you were told, and we were told by your village manager at the time, we won't let this happen. It's happening. So either you're going to do something about it. I requested the ordinance, what the fine was, why the signage isn't up already, hasn't been done. And I'm getting the stall again. 3 years. 3 years, George. All the evidence you had, and you guys got to put a truck parking lot in your western edge. You might as well take down that banner and change it to no dumping allowed. It's not community nature and harmony. You guys don't care.
What time are we?
It's over 3 minutes.
And then when I was told my time was up at the environmental meeting, I don't even know who the gentleman was. He told me, "You keep up the good work and keep sending your complaints." I said, "Why is it my job?"
The 3 minutes are up.
Okay.
All right. And we do have everything in process, and we have been giving tickets.
No, you haven't. Not according to your village manager. You have not issued one citation. You've
haven't-
issued citations for trucks on Gauger Road
My turn to
only.
talk.
Oh, excuse me.
Your 3 minutes are up.
Fine, I'm out of here. As usual, nothing will happen with this stupid village.
Lieutenant? Sir. Can you inform them what we've been doing?
Yes, sir. Will do.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Have a nice night.
That was nice.
Wow.
That's not Al, that's him.
Good night.
Next one would be Sharon Swees. Can you top that one?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I could. Good evening, everyone. I'm here regarding agenda item I3. There is no justification for wanting to hire an additional law firm, Odelson and Stirk, to be what looks like your personal attorneys, who will be at your beck and call at a rate of $185 per hour and at the expense of the taxpayers. If you want a personal type of attorney, then pay for it out of your own pocket and not burden the taxpayers with this nonsense and wasteful spending. Remember that truck that drove around the village during election time? It stated, "Vote for fiscal responsibility." And whose pictures were on that truck? 4 of you sitting on this board right now. That's all we saw, fiscal responsibility. This is a prime example of wasteful spending on the taxpayers' dime, and it's really sad to see this attitude and division on this board.
Thank you, Sharon. Next would be Kevin Kokel.
Well, wait for everybody to set the bar. So, I just come here seeking resolution, okay? I think we have an issue going on, me and Casey. Other people sitting in this particular room have brought up concerns of what's going on at his property, which is 15064 West 143rd Street. I am the corner house, the gentleman who parks his truck and trailer on Casey's property, which apparently people have problems with. I have an entire folder of what we believe is harassment. I want to bring it to your attention today because we are seeking resolution for this harassment. 10 fines have been given out. All have been brought to court, and all of them have been thrown away. A list of Mr. Joe Barber's occurrences of constantly stopping by, and I'm not blaming him by no means, okay? He gets a phone call from one of our wonderful residents, my fellow neighbors, complaining about something, and he has to come by and check on it. Totally understandable. The problem is, our wonderful neighbors decide to go to their backyards and yell obscenities and swear and come to our properties and harass us. We want it to stop. Casey is zoned A1 agricultural. We'll use Bengstings as a case in point. They have millings on their property. Casey has millings on his property. They have stone on their property used for parking. Casey has stone on his property, not used for parking. He has chickens and animals. Bengstings has chickens and animals. And I park my truck and trailer there. None of these things are a violation. I feel that people in this town need to be informed of what an A1 agricultural zoning is allowed and not allowed to do. They come here, they stand up in these meetings, they complain about drainage, they complain about a ton of things. The problem is, I do own my own construction company. I've done grading and construction for the Illinois Tollway as a union equipment operator for 21 years. I've helped Casey with his property. His property was ran down, overgrown, and disgusting when he bought it. And what it looks like now compared to what it looked like then is 1,000 times different. So it's to improve the town, not make it look worse. Also, the road is not ever going to be used for commercial vehicles. Let's get that straight. Nobody has a DOT number on any of those vehicles. No semis have ever been there except to deliver something, okay? I just want to clear this up now because I'm sick of people coming to my house and harassing me. I spoke with my lawyer. I want it to stop. That's what I want. So I'm bringing it to your attention today to seek resolution for the harassment and to give my fellow neighbors an idea of what A1 is zoning can and cannot do. Casey, this is his son. Casey has a list of plans that he has submitted, blueprints and drawings the town has asked him to submit that have been denied. Not meeting code, not meeting this, not meeting that. You know, he wants, everybody's seen the trailer off of 143rd. It's disgusting and ugly. I live next to it. He owns it. He wants to improve it. Have you seen the barn that was disgusting and ran down and how it looks now? The big blue barn looks amazing. He has plans to change that. 3 sets of plans, $3,500 in architectural drawings shot down by the town, denied because they're following residential building codes when we're looking to do A1 zoning. So I don't know if you guys...
Real quick.
Sorry.
Don't mean to interrupt, but you're way past 3 minutes already.
Sorry.
First of all, which one of you is Kevin?
This is Kevin.
I'm Kevin. I'm the corner house.
Okay, because it says Kevin. So I'm,
Yeah, because I wanted 6 minutes.
you only get 3, and that time's up.
Yeah.
So what we can do is we can sit down with Mr. Baber. I'll be more than happy to sit in on it and find out what it is, and we can go from there. But nothing's going to get accomplished tonight.
Understandable. Does anybody want a copy of all of this?
Mr. Baber will take it, and then we will look at it.
Thank you.
All right, and then we'll address it, and we'll get back to you next week.
Thank you. I'll be here.
So much.
You're welcome. Next would be Brent Portfolio.
Thanks, Mayor and trustees, for having me. I'll make this quick. Good evening. I'm Brent Portfolio, the new Homer Township Highway Commissioner. I'm here to clarify and correct some of the comments from a couple of weeks ago by Brian Kozar. This was a couple of weeks ago. On December 9th, the Homer Glen Village Board voted to form a new Public Works Department and levy a new public works and municipal tax in order to raise money to fund it. In April of 2021, shortly thereafter, an IGA was signed by Mike DeVivo and the mayor, transferring over $7 million in road district assets away from the Homer Township Road District that's been in place since 1836. This included vehicles, accessories, equipment, facilities, and property. This, of course, did not correlate with the wishes of the Homer Township residents as per the results of last November's election, where they voted not to dissolve the road district. Subsequent to the IGA approval, the road district was left with 2 employees, a paltry list of equipment to maintain the road district assets, which was a couple of trucks and some miscellaneous hand tools. There was no land left for material storage, and half of a small new maintenance building to house all of our equipment and vehicles. This is well short of the required vehicles and equipment required to maintain the road district assets. There was also a statement he made a couple of weeks ago about a $511,000 road district tax levy budget. This, of course, is woefully short of what would be required for the new mileage in this road district. One needs to be aware of the fact that half of all of the annual road district tax levy by the road district is transferred back to all municipalities in the township. So that $511,000 gets cut by 40% down to $300,000, which barely pays for salary, staffs, and benefits. There's no money left over for new equipment, materials, vehicle and equipment maintenance, roadway improvements, maintenance of sidewalks, ditching, culverts, lighting, I take a breath, trees, signing and parkways, not to mention monthly bills, fuel, and salt. Since taking office on May 17th, I have been in discussions with the village and the township and their new boards to figure out how to best serve both the township and the village residents at a reasonable cost that will be tax neutral to you, the residents. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting close. The transfer of the road district assets to Homer Glen via the IGA, in my opinion, was rushed, not well written, and probably should have waited until after the April 6th election, especially after having heard from the Homer Township residents in November and the fact that there are brand new board majorities in both Homer Township and Homer Glen. So today, the residents unfortunately are paying for the annual road services from Homer Glen Public Works Municipal Tax and the Homer Township Road District Tax, and I'm here to try to help to optimize that. As such, I promise to work to the best of my abilities to stabilize taxes for the benefit of all Homer Township and Homer Glen residents and taxpayers on behalf of the road district. I'm in discussions, of course, with the village and the township to help craft a solution that ensures all of the road district and Homer Glen assets are properly maintained at a price that will not overburden the taxpayers. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Brent. Next would be Jack from Clark.
I believe I'm under, I was signing in, I believe I'm under the workshop, Jay.
All right, okay, so I'll call you up to the,
Thank you.
you're welcome. And next would be Keith Gray.
Good evening, Mayor and Village Trustees. I'm here tonight to object to Ordinance 21-033, an ordinance creating position of legislative counsel on tonight's agenda. Appointing a duplicate legal firm to only consult with the trustees, I believe, will lead to division and acrimony between our elected officials. The supplement cover sheet for this ordinance is misleading. It says that the legislative counsel is to serve as legal advisor to the village board and act as parliamentarian of the village board. The legislative counsel does not replace the existing village attorney. This is an additional position. The actual language in the ordinance gives the legislative counsel far more power, including but not limited to representation of the corporate authorities regarding legislative matters and litigation, defend the village board and its members against claims and lawsuits, etc. This is a huge difference, as this effectively appoints a second fully authorized village attorney. The existing code specifically creates the position of village attorney and designates the authority to that position to represent the village, the board, and the village administration. This action is not in the best interest of the village or the residents. It will cost the residents and taxpayers untold tens of thousands of dollars, and all to what purpose? This is fiscally irresponsible and goes against conservative norms. Also, why would the village think to hire this particular firm? There's no backup information showing that the firm is the best candidate or that the firm has come out on top of a qualifications request. There's no mention of an RFP or a bid process. It seems illogical to hire the same legal firm as the township and the township road district. Recent history shows that there will be times when the village and the township will be on opposite sides of issues. Even in issues where the village and the township might be in agreement, isn't it more prudent to have an unbiased and village-focused legal representation? Excuse me. In closing, I urge you to vote against this action. It's not right for Homer Glen. It's not in the best interest of the residents. In the recent election, there was a promise to enforce a policy that all worker services in excess of $10,000 must be put out for bid. Trustee Fialco, Trustee Consolino, Trustee Reinders, Trustee Laha, if you vote yes for this measure, you will have broken your commitment to Homer Glen. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Let's end the public comment. We'll go to consent agenda. Okay. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered routine by the village board and will be enacted by one motion. So is there a motion to approve the following items? 1, the accounts payable, we're going to move that down to 7. The treasurer's report for the month ending May 31st, 2021.
So moved.
Do I have a second for the treasurer's report?
Second.
All right, do I have discussion? Okay, so, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Laha?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers? Aye. Trustee Fialco?
Aye.
Trustee Reinders?
Aye.
Trustee Consolino?
Aye.
Trustee Pazmino?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, approval of revised 2021 Village Board meeting calendar. Is there a motion to approve the revised 2021 Village Board meeting calendar?
So motion.
So Trustee Consolino,
Second.
Reinders, discussion? Madam Clerk, you want to call the roll?
Trustee Rogers? Aye. Trustee Pasmino?
Aye.
Trustee Laha?
Aye.
Trustee Fialko?
Aye.
Trustee Consolino?
Aye.
Trustee Reinders?
Aye.
Motion carries. 2, is there a motion to approve ordinance number 21-032, an ordinance establishing the Commercial Building Improvement Grant Program?
So moved.
And then, all right,
Sorry.
that's all right, go ahead.
Second.
All right, so it's trustee Rogers,
Reinders.
okay, and trustee Reinders.
Trustee Rose.
All right, now it's discussion.
I'd like to say that I'm happy to see that accessibility upgrades are included in this grant. ADA compliance is huge for businesses, and I'm happy to see that acknowledged. So I want to thank you for that.
All right, so Janie, you want to come up here and explain to them what's...
Sure. We do have a staff presentation just to provide background. And I'll just start out by saying that the Community and Economic Development Committee took a look at this proposed program and did recommend approval. There were a couple of changes, one to the grant award maximum amount, and then also in consideration of future budgets, that budget amount be higher than what is available in the budget for this year. At this point, I'm going to turn this over to intern Taylor Udabe, who has been working with me this summer. She has provided some great peer community research and development of this program, and she's going to provide a staff briefing, and then I'll wrap it up, and then we'll be set for your discussion.
I'd like to add one thing to that. In the discussion, I'm looking at page 2, where ineligible improvements, general exterior maintenance or repair, the parking lot or sidewalk maintenance, and landscaping. And I was just wondering if you could let us know why those were considered ineligible for the grant?
Sure. Do you want me to go over that?
Not now, but in the presentation, if you could let us know how we got there?
Okay.
Thank you.
Start with a little bit of background. The village already established programs in 2012 to facilitate desired facade improvements and sign replacements through business incentive loan programs. Unfortunately, these failed to attract applicants. We've also seen that other programs are using grant programs for building improvements as opposed to loan programs. More recently, we find that a number of businesses inquired about the village's COVID loan program, but did not apply due to it not being a grant program. Due to these past experiences with loan programs, we are proposing the Commercial Building Improvement Grant Program now. This proposed reimbursement grant program offers tools to mitigate the financial challenges associated with building improvements and will help Homer Glen to retain and attract new businesses. We currently have a $40,000 placeholder in the FY22 budget to support this program. Commercial building owners, existing business tenants, and new business tenants that are located in Homer Glen can apply if the existing building is zoned commercial. We ask that eligible candidates install at least $2,000 worth of material improvements. And then grant awards will be available on a first-come, first-served basis based on funds availability. While researching improvement grants, staff found that some programs focus specifically on only facades, interiors, signage, or life safety, while others cover a wider range of improvements. For Homer Glen's Commercial Building Improvement Grant Program, we incorporated these best practices from other communities to create one program that would be easy to administer and would result in lasting benefits for our community. The eligible improvements are intended to remain with the property. They include improvements to facades, freestanding signage, life safety upgrades, accessibility, and utilities. This would mean that grant assistance will be available to replace freestanding signage that is legal non-conforming. Most ineligible improvements tend to fall into the categories of general maintenance or business expenses, and corrections to bring a property into code compliance will also not be eligible for funding. Comparative research found that building improvement grant programs typically cover 50% of approved costs with an average maximum amount of $17,500. Based on this research, staff recommended an original reimbursement grant amount of 50% of approved costs with a maximum amount of $20,000 to encourage larger, more impactful projects. Due to our current budget and wanting to help more businesses, the CED committee recommended adjusting the maximum grant award from $20,000 to $10,000. The current proposed program reflects this adjustment to a $10,000 maximum grant award. And for the rest of the presentation, I'm going to hand it back over to James.
Okay. So I just wanted to cover in the actual grant program description on page 2, under the grant approval process, there is an item number 4, and it's the second bullet on the screen here. That grant award amounts under $5,000 would require approval by the village manager. Award amounts of $5,000 or more must be approved by the village board. That actually is not consistent with our own village board purchasing policy. And to make this program more user-friendly and easier to, more efficient and easier to administer, I'd like to make the recommendation that if the board wants to move forward with this program, to consider the following replacement language, and this would basically make it consistent with the purchasing policy. So have it read instead, grant awards for funds disbursements require approval by the village manager and mayor. So that way we have both the manager and the mayor involved for the awards. This would be consistent with the policy above $5,000 and above. If it was a simpler grant application up to $5,000, the village manager can sign off on that. And then between $5,000 and $10,000, which is the maximum amount of award for this program structure, it would take both the village manager and the mayor. Did I cover that appropriately? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So that would be a recommendation. It would make it simpler rather than these smaller projects having to come, just like a $10,000 grant having to come to the village board. Our purchasing policy allows that to happen between the manager and the mayor.
So you're saying it would cap out at $10,000, correct?
Correct.
Anything over $10,000 would still have to come to this board?
The maximum award under this program possible would be $10,000.
I couldn't hear what you said.
Yeah, the maximum award under this program structure would be $10,000. It cannot be more than $10,000.
And the way it's set up, they can't do 2 of them to end up going over that $10,000 and divvy it up 2 different ways. You're only allowing one business to apply for one grant, correct?
Right. There is a, on page 3, at the very end of this section on grant details, the final bullet point does talk about you are only eligible to reapply after 3 years. If you wanted to come in for, say, a different type of improvement that would be eligible under this program. Okay. And then to answer the question that you asked earlier about why is maintenance not covered, maintenance is really a property owner's responsibility as the owner of that property. When we get into parking lot maintenance, parking lots need regular maintenance, and it's not a permanent improvement. And when we look at our peer and neighboring communities, nobody supports that type of, while it's an improvement to the property, it truly is maintenance. And none of these programs support maintenance type activities. They're really trying to support permanent improvements like the life safety aspects, like the accessibility, improvements to the building that are going to stay with the building, electrical, plumbing, that kind of thing. So we've structured it based on what we saw out in the field with other communities, how everybody else is doing it, and the basic philosophy is to stay away from maintenance.
Okay. With that said, though, when we talk about a facade of a building and what the village residents have to look at on the facade of a building, maybe the language could include the tuck pointing, but it's only would be on the front side of the building or the facade, as we're saying. Painting also, because the idea is to make it aesthetically look inviting, and for that business, if that can help that business out, I don't see why tuck pointing on the facade can't be on there, painting can't be on there. Roofing, if it's a roof, I mean, you have it in here, roofing in your in the list here under the bullet 1. But if it's a roof that's visible from the street and it's part of the facade, I would think that we would include that. So maybe you could make some adjustments where some of that could be allowable, but not all of it. I understand what you're saying, that some of these go with the building, but it truly is, a lot of times it is part of the facade. The parking lot or sidewalk, a lot of our parking lots in Homer Glen are totally torn up before they get repaired. It sometimes takes a long time, and we hear complaints about that here, about parking lot. Sidewalk, that I could see why we're not saying sidewalk, but landscaping beautifies a building. If that's part of the facade and it's in the front, maybe you could add that, but put some limitations to it. So we can help these businesses out and make our community a more inviting community for those buildings that may be needing that extra boost to make that happen. The other thing that I'm looking at here is it says that improvements that are non-compliant with the village code, but then we go back to the sign issue on eligible improvements, where we then talk about signs or new or replacement commercial signs, freestanding only. The sign issue in this community is a big issue and has been for quite some time. So to assist even partially with making, you know, an improvement to the sign, as long as it is on the facade of that building, only makes sense to me.
So the difference with the freestanding sign being eligible is that, again, a business owner's sign, their wall sign on their unit's facade, that can change. Businesses do come and go. So it's a policy decision. The board could decide to allow wall signs for individual businesses, but realize that you may not see your investment stay there because there could be changes in business over time. So the thought was to go with the freestanding sign only, because once you have a monument sign in the ground, you now can change sign panels. But the structure itself is there, that's permanent, that will stay,
True.
and that would be like a reasonable investment for the public to make in partnering with businesses and property owners.
Understood, but there are freestanding signs that don't meet the village code.
Correct, and
So
those are
if
different.
we go back to that,
Yeah,
that's kind of like what I'm addressing here.
Okay.
I understand your point perfectly, but when we have freestanding signs that don't fall into the village code, maybe you could make an adjustment, even if it's for a portion of it, to help those businesses out.
Well, actually, we did, prior, in 2012, we had a program that was to provide, and back then it was loans, for the replacement of non-conforming signs. And this program does carry forward the spirit of that. It's now a grant program. But those signs are considered what we call legal non-conforming signs. So they preceded the sign code. And so they're here because they have a right to be. They preceded the code that said, no, you can't do a sign like that anymore. We do have amortization in our code right now for such signage by 2026. And so this program could be used simply for a property that needs to take down a legal non-conforming sign and replace it. And would assist them to do that. But the point about under ineligible improvements that are non-compliant with village code, we don't want to incentivize or partner on any project where it's not really conforming to code. We want to make sure that anything that we're investing in is consistent with the policies and
I was only using that example for the freestanding signs. That is why I called attention to it, because it kind of, to me, it's a little bit of a conflict between the two. But I understand. So there's some changes that I'd like to see made here. I don't know how you want to go forward. You want to change the one item on number 4 under the grant approval process. With that said, I'd like to see these small changes if the rest of the trustees agree with me, or do we have to come back to this issue?
I would say that the amount of changes that you're looking for, Janie should bring it back to the CED and have them discuss it, and then I would invite you to that meeting so that you can further explain yourself, because there's too many changes here that you're asking for us to move forward with that without their consent. So I would recommend at this time tabling it until the end of August after the next CED meeting.
I concur. Is there any other discussion on it?
The motion is ready.
A motion to table it?
Yes.
You have to make it a motion. You made the motion to table? Or who's?
I made a motion
one
to
has.
table it until the end of August.
But previous to that, then we have a motion and a second, and then it went into discussion?
Correct. But at this point, during discussion, that the motion to table would override that. Because you're cutting off the discussion and sending it back.
Thank you.
I believe we could bring this back to the August CED meeting.
Yeah.
You remember what date that is, Jenny?
It's the second Monday, now that we've gone to the new schedule. I believe that could be August 9th.
It's what we just voted on, so it's in the schedule that we just voted
So
on.
then would you want to table it to the
The end of August, so that CED meets first and then goes back to staff and then
Right.
to August.
And then it can go to the board.
I just want to make sure we have the exact date of that.
Okay.
Wait a second.
Beth made the motion. Who's going to second?
Second?
Trustee Fialko? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
That's August 25th.
Table till,
August 25th.
okay. Janie, you've got all that then?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So, this one. Okay, next, there is a motion to approve ordinance number 21-033, an ordinance creating the position of legislative counsel and the appointment of Odelson, Stirk, Murphy, Frazier, McGrath Limited as legal counsel.
So move.
Second.
So that would be Pasmino. and Jennifer, that was you, right? Cancelino. So, what, I know. All right, so let's see the discussion that we do have on this, because I have a couple questions, but I'll let you try to explain what the reason is for this, so whoever wants to take the reins.
I'll take the
But
reins.
Let's make sure whoever's taking the reins, everyone listens until they're done talking, and then we switch over to the next person that's going to talk.
Agreed.
Okay, so it's in your court.
It is with candor that I present to our village board and to the residents of Homer Glen as to why I, as a newly elected official, feel the necessity to retain a secondary legislative counsel to preside on our village board. Recently, I was elected to this board to change the direction of the previous administration. Our committee spoke loud and clear. My entire slate of 4 candidates won by a landslide. The election should have ended on April 7th, but I don't believe that it has. I promised transparency and accountability when I ran for trustee. Our residents deserve to know what is transpiring with our village, and I have the right to publicly state why I do not trust or have faith in the current state of this board. I take great pride in the fact that I have acted with the utmost professionalism while on this board and while working with my fellow elected officials. In return, I've been harassed by current and former board members. I've documented the incidents accordingly, and I've demanded to never meet one-on-one with any of the remaining board members from the previous administration. This is to protect myself, elected officials, and our village. I've reported conduct unbecoming by current board members to no avail. I find it shocking, to say the least, that our village officials do not abide by our village policies. We do not have an ethics advisor or an ethics commission, as stated in our policy, to oversee and discipline our elected officials. How has this not been established in the 20 years that we have been a village? I have brought this fact up to our board and to our staff with no response. We have rules for our village staff, but not for our elected officials. This says to me that our village board believes in rules for thee, but not for me. I do not support this mentality and the cancer it can spread within our administration. Our current village attorney is not parliamentary certified, and it shows. As newly elected trustees, we may be a little green when it comes to Robert's Rules of Order. However, we are not completely ignorant. More than once, Trustee Fialco has had to cite laws from Robert's Rules of Orders while asserting his right to make a comment on the board. I have no problem saying that our current village attorney consistently sides with and protects our mayor and Trustee Rogers during board discussions. Our mayor, especially our mayor, and our former village trustees have all platformed, electioneered, and gave misinformation during open village board meetings in March, April, and even after the election in May of this year. Our current village attorney sat here on this board and permitted it without saying a word to interject. The comments that were made while seated on this board were unacceptable and unprofessional. Their intent and nature were to electioneer for the former trustee's campaign and to negatively propagandize our candidacy. After we were elected, comments were still made and targeted. They targeted the newly elected trustees as well as the ones who are up for re-election in 2 years. Again, there was no accountability from our village attorney. Actually, electioneering while on the village board is illegal. I could read all the comments from the meetings or show you the videos, but I doubt anybody wants to sit here all night long. Videos are available on the village website and on YouTube for anyone to view. Campaigning has not ended. You have current and former board members campaigning for the 2023 election. I think this distraction prevents us from doing our job and from the real priorities at hand within our village. How could it not? Repeatedly, the mayor and Trustee Rogers have stated that the sports complex idea is a lie and is no longer in existence on the board. Our village attorney has been present for these comments. However, according to our economic development director, it is still in existence and still in the comprehensive plan. I and the other trustees have all been informed of this. Why has the current village attorney not clarified this or corrected this repeated statement? A few months ago, our current village board had to vote to approve appointments with our village committees. Our current village attorney did nothing to assist or to enforce the village ordinance regarding trustee appointments. This had to be done through repeated backdoor meetings with the mayor and village trustees. The ordinance is very clear. No trustee should have to beg and plead with the mayor and/or any other board members to abide by any ordinance. This ordinance states that only village trustees can be named as a chair for a village committee. Yet the mayor and Trustee Rogers created a stalemate and were permitted to get away with the board looking as if it was in an argument over one individual's appointment. Our village attorney sided solely with the mayor and Trustee Rogers. He did nothing to enforce that they follow the ordinance or correct the agenda to reflect such. It is with the responsibility of the village clerk to take meeting minutes during our village board meetings. Our mayor and our village attorney permit the clerk to repeatedly have liberty with allowing her to make comments during board meetings. This is not the clerk's job, and comments should only be permitted if and when necessary and if information is required. Currently, there is a massive backlog of executive session meeting minutes that need to be typed. Where is the priority with rules being followed, and where is our current village attorney encouraging these rules to be followed? All meeting minutes, open and executive, should be typed with a timely manner to stay within compliance of state and federal record laws. Since May, I have requested through several staff members my need to obtain legal documentation and language from our village attorney. I've been very specific with my request for both Illinois municipal codes and/or case laws that apply to both the village and residential properties in regard to due diligence, jurisdiction, floodplains, and drainage. I'm advocating on behalf of residents at Long Run Creek, our community as a whole, and for the village staff as well. The responses that I've received from the staff were that the village attorney had not gotten back to them, or that the village attorney could just write something up. My response was that this was not acceptable, and that I require actual documentation. To date, I have nothing. How does this allow me to do my job as a trustee if my requests for information are dismissed? I cannot create or even follow a policy. I cannot advocate. My request appears to mean nothing. I'd like to note that it appears the mayor and trustee Rogers can utilize the village attorney on issues that they are personally vested in, but that myself and the other trustees come second. That's if we are able to get any response at all. The coup de grace that has created an emergency request to retain a secondary legal counsel is regarding hiring. Our village hired a public works director last week with a $100,000 salary. The other trustees and I were not given the opportunity to review this position or allowed to give any input. We have also come to realize that we were never permitted to have a vote or have any discussion regarding our assistant village manager being appointed to acting interim village manager. For the record, I am very happy with our acting interim village manager. However, by our own village ordinances, this is the one position we do have authority and voting power over. It wasn't just denied to us. We were completely taken out of the equation, and it's also in violation of our ordinances. Carrie Freiling submitted her resignation in March, and her last day of employment was on April 7th. At no time has the position of the acting interim village manager been brought before us, and the former board did not vote on this in April. Why didn't our current village attorney catch this? The urgency to acquire immediate assistance from another law firm came after my experience at the village board meeting on July 14th. I cannot state what occurred during executive session. I have selected a firm that previously worked with the village of Homer Glen. This firm knows our village, and it knows our village codes very well. Mayor Yukich fired this firm after his first election. Oldenson & Stark Law Firm has had over 40 years of experience, and their attorneys are parliamentary certified. According to our mayor, trustee Rogers, and clerk Netschke-Troike, and the current village attorney Eric Hansen, parliamentary certification does not matter. Having an attorney on our board who is certified in parliamentary procedure and has an extensive and unparalleled institutional knowledge of municipal government, in my opinion, is extremely relevant. Oldenson & Stark's history and reputation precedes them. I want to go on the record that I and the other trustees are not against looking at other law firms and putting this position out for bid. My fellow trustees and I requested this ordinance for another law firm all the way back in May. We've run into resistance from the mayor, trustee Rogers, and clerk Netschke-Troike. We've also run into opposition from former village trustees. This has created much difficulty in us having the ability to acquire village staff to assist us in this process. Formidably, we have former trustees who have expressed their concerns about the costs that the village will incur because of retaining a secondary legal counsel. Oldenson & Stark's hourly charge is about $10 cheaper than the current village attorney. Their billable hour costs $185, while the current law firm is $195 an hour. I would think that it will not be a necessity to have them sit on every single board meeting. Despite the opposition and what they have to say on this subject, it is our right to have a secondary legal counsel represent us on this board. Numerous municipalities already do this. We are not the only village with a board conflicted and filled with mistrust. There is no shame in admitting there is a problem and attempting to resolve it. Encouraging a professional environment, having two legal advocates to properly guide our elected officials to follow municipal codes, Robert's Rules of Order, and the village ordinances and policies will protect our village, our staff, and our residents. Our board sincerely needs to have an honest system of checks and balances to uphold its integrity. When a village attorney does not advocate for everyone on the board, order is lost. When a village attorney is not parliamentary certified, proper guidance is lost. When a village attorney picks and chooses when to follow ordinances, order no longer exists within the village board. These reasons, and for many more that I cannot share out loud, are why I unapologetically choose to retain a secondary legal counsel. Thank you.
Trustee Laha, do you have anything?
I do. Well, I do want to thank the former trustees who came up here and voiced their opinion. You know, this has been something really important for me, and I feel it's an important decision, so thank you for giving your input. I've been giving this edition of the ordinance a lot of thought, probably more hours than I probably should have. I do believe that I have done my personal due diligence on this matter. I've spoken with each one of my trustees because I respect every single person who sits up here. I've spoken with our village counsel, Eric, and I thank you for your time on that. I've spoken to our village manager, and I've even received a second opinion on this matter, as I feel it has helped me see from a different perspective. And as an elected official, I think it's very important that I receive multiple perspectives so I can make a decision. I've spoken to Mr. Odelson himself from Odelson, Stirk, Murphy, and McGrath, and I've asked some really important questions. Which is what I believe I have been elected to do, is to ask those important questions. I have some thoughts about some things that have been brought up tonight. First of all, no one should feel uncomfortable, unheard, or misrepresented at their job ever. I've been through a situation like that, and it definitely needs some acknowledgement, and it deserves a resolution. So I just want to go on record and say that. Fiscal responsibility was mentioned, and I did promise fiscal responsibility. Fiscal responsibility doesn't just mean we're smart and we respect our community members' hard-earned money. It also means that we as elected officials have the discernment to put proper precautionary measures in place so big, expensive mistakes are not made, like a municipal tax on our village and our neighbors. Some things that I wanted to have some clarification on, and I received. It's my full understanding that this new position does not replace our current attorney. For example, should there be lawsuits like from the township, Eric would still represent this village board. It's also my understanding that the goal for the village council and a separate legislative council will be fulfilling different roles. And both the attorney and legislative council are paid on an hourly as needed basis. It was asked how this will benefit our community, and to me that is the most important question that former trustee Keith asked, and it is an important question for me, which I spent the most time on. I see this as a safety net. I see this as a way to cover all of our bases, a way to provide even more resources. I'm not a politician, and I don't claim to sit up here and have all the answers. I think it's obvious that I'm new to this. And with even more information and insights, and maybe a different perspective added to this equation available to me, that provides greater confidence that so I and my fellow board members can make the best decisions moving forward for our community members. I mean, I even received a second opinion walking in here tonight. It's important that I see things from different perspectives. I equate this to my daughter, actually. She has a pediatrician, but she also has a specialist. And to me, this is what I see that as. I don't know about you, but I am so unbelievably grateful for a specialist's perspective. I fully understand that there are going to be supporters of this checks and balance, and I also know that there won't be. I close with some thoughts from me to my fellow board members. Additional resources can drastically change the outcome. Specialized insight can save a life. Precautionary measures put in place beforehand could have prevented my daughter from having brain damage. I will never let a mistake like that happen again. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Trustee Pazmino or Trustee Rogers?
I want to say this entire proposed ordinance is completely inappropriate and lacks merit. And in my opinion, was put in motion prior to April 6th. And Jennifer just verified that by indicating she came in May and wanted this before any interaction with at a board level. 4 meetings we've been to. 2 months you've been on here. Most of what she said I would completely disagree with. I was never told not to converse with you. I have no idea where that came from. I have been here for 6 years. I have never been part of the process of hiring staff. It's not what we do. I never sat in on Gina, I never sat in with you, I never sat in with any of these people who have a job here. Never was part of it. It's not my job. I'm not their manager. The only interviews we ever sat in on were village managers and attorneys. This proposal is everything the former board was accused of. First thing on your campaign, on your website says, no bid contracts. Not only is this a no bid, never went out, there was never even an interview. The current board is only 2 months old. Ruben and I have never once argued a bill, questioned the current firm's ethics, with their work performance, nothing, never. I refuse to vote for what was not even drafted by our own village board. And since you sent this to me, I'd like to ask you, who drafted this ordinance?
I'm allowing your time to speak.
I'm sorry?
I'm allowing your time to speak.
I'm speaking. Where did this ordinance come from? Because I don't have the answers. If it's not coming from the village, I'm just curious, like, who drafted it? That speaks volumes. The firm you're proposing was fired by the village. When George and I took over, and we were the only ones here on the board at the time, we looked at the bills and knew that they were astronomical. $185 an hour means nothing. If 195 and 185 and you want to compare those two, I'm sorry, but it's going to be an hour and a half versus an hour's worth of work. I know how to play that game. The firm, having a firm, the same firm as a township, even part of any of executive meetings or anything else, it really is a conflict of interest. This whole thing, in my opinion, started well before April 6th. That's all I have.
Well, I'll have to agree with her on that. Almost everything that was posted out there, and boy, I wish I would have brought a whole bunch of papers like you did, but I figured that we're here to run a village and make sure it's the best it possibly can be. We don't have problems. I don't need 2 law firms. And like they said, with the prices, right now, the highest bill that we've ever had with this company is $130,000, and that was when we did the Homer Township Road District. The other group is 219, 202, 220, 177, 103. Well, when it came down to 103, we started writing our own ordinances here because we didn't want to spend the money. If you've noticed anything about this village, all it is just making sure that the residents have what they want, have what they ask for, and we make sure it happens. For this, it is another cost to the taxpayer. And as Beth had just got done saying, you've been here for 4 months, or you've been here for 2 months. You've been 4 meetings. Jesus Christ, I mean, what do you think you're going to learn? I've been in this for 17 years, 18 years now. I don't know still a lot of things that go on. It changes all the time. And I don't do what the staff's job is. I let the staff do it. And as for Matt hiring someone, that's his job. That's not your job. That's not your job. That's none of your job. That's Matt's job. Did I agree with him? Yeah, I did agree with him on it. But he's the one that decided this is who he wanted. That's exactly what it is. This man here is who I wanted because I know I can trust him. And as for him doing favors for Beth and myself, oh my God, where do you come up with this stuff? Because it pretty much is, sounds like you had a professional write this for you because this isn't true. What you had said tonight, Jennifer, was so out there, just kind of blows me away. If you think that you guys, this is what you need, I can't stop you. I won't stop you. But for me, if I was outside of politics looking in right now at this, I'd wonder what the heck is going on. So what I would say is, I think we should look into every single solitary thing that you've said today, and what you've come up with too, Nikki, on this. We're going to look into everything and try to figure out where there's an issue in the first place, because this village for the last 6.5 years, we'll go with that one, has had no problems. There's no fighting. Everyone gets along with each other. We have money in the bank. We have no debt whatsoever. And I think that everyone well, I can't judge this board right now because I figured I'd give you guys 2 months to figure out what it is, but apparently you know more than everybody else does, and you're going to decide on something like that. And you three haven't talked yet, but I got a feeling that's the direction it's going to be going. And if I go by things that I've heard on the street, you know what, I don't even want to go there, because that's not us. Never have been. And the former trustees that did lose their job, they lost their job. And as far as I'm concerned, it's fine. You came on board, but you never boarded. You came to the boat and you never got on. So I'm pretty much done with what I have to say on this. The three of you, I'll give you an opportunity to say what you want to say. And then from there, I'll call a vote. So, Ruben, it's your turn.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Basically, the whole essence for me is the board feels uncomfortable. And at the end of the day, I mean, I try to always put myself in other people's shoes, because you never know. You always have to, even your viable opponents, you sit there and you kind of look through their eyes and walk in their shoes and, see where they're coming from. And I would hope that...
Wait, and I'm going to every once in a while interrupt, because there are certain things that if I don't ask you, then they just get past it. But here, I would have to say, what are the issues? Go ahead.
Thanks, sir. Well, a lot of what I was going to say was pretty much covered, because contrary to what you believe, sir, this is not rehearsed. This is strictly coming from what we believe, what's in our hearts, what's in our brains, what's also out there in the streets, I guess you could put. But giving you the benefit of the doubt, trying to come in and work with everybody, play game, or play ball, Last May, we voiced our opinion, we voiced our dismay, and we said, you know what, it would probably be better if we acquired another attorney. So the board was advised by the mayor in May that we should give our current representation a try before we continue with our decision to obtain alternate counsel, which we did. We sat in the meetings, but it gets to a point where you say, well, how far are we going to let this go? There were times where we felt that, there were questionable interpretations of Robert's rules, the SOPs, the village ordinances, the hiring of certain village staff recently, which for us was, because you guys have done it different in the past, because you guys all felt comfortable with each other, let's face it, this was a very contentious campaign. So there's a lot of bad feelings, there's a lot of, watch out for this, watch out for that. Imagine going into a courtroom and the person representing you don't really trust. Not to say anything negative or anything, but that's really kind of where we're coming from. We are agreeing to this, every day, like you said, sir, even in 15 years, you're still learning. That's just life. We're always learning every day. And we just feel that it's the best move. Now, is this legislative attorney going to sit here every day, handle every single document? Is there going to be duplicity? Absolutely not, because that's exactly what we want to avoid. But there are going to be situations, like situations that have come up in the past, where we would like a second opinion, in which point we will consult with the legislative attorney, a second opinion. That's just how I feel. I mean, if I was the mayor, I'd be like, well, go ahead, knock your socks off. There's nothing to prove, you're going to see. And then it fades away. And I'd even probably say, I'll pay for it out of my own pocket if I have to. But the whole point is that we want transparency, we want things done the right way, and you might even have the best intentions, but right now at this point, we're not there yet. So, just a few things about the current attorney, and they were touched upon. The attorney, the firm is Odelson, Stirk, Murphy, Frazier, McGrath. The principal attorney, Mr. Odelson, has been in practice for 49 years, 8 of which he represented the village of Homer Glen in past administrations. Mr. Odelson is a certified parliamentarian, and he and his firm currently represent 25 municipalities, 6 townships, and 10 school districts. In my opinion, retaining this legislative attorney will help us be an even more well-advised and productive board. I feel that it's time we get back to doing the work of the people, knowing full well that we have the support and the advisement of the best legislative counsel. That's what I have, sir.
Okay. Rose?
What is the definition of a village trustee? A village trustee is an elected official that functions as the legislative branch of local government. They, in accordance with the Illinois Municipal Code, establish policies and legislative direction of the village. They create and adapt all ordinances, resolutions, and maintain the authority to make final decisions on land use matters. In accordance with the law, that being the operative phrase here, Ordinance 21-033 is well within the laws of this state. It is not a new concept. For days I have researched village after village, ordinance by ordinance. And so far, in a short period of time, I found 20 villages that share this ordinance and support the appointment of independent legislative counsel for trustees, whether or not they have an appointed village attorney. To name a few, Tinley Park, Orland Park, Mosquito, Hinsdale, Naperville, Woodridge, and Western Springs, and the list goes on. If you listen to the chatter in this room tonight from former trustees, they will have you believe that we are trying to create division, acrimony, that we are biased, that we are fiscally irresponsible, that by retaining additional counsel, it's going to cost tens of thousands of dollars. Nothing could be further from the truth. We are looking for a legislative counsel to help us enhance this village. These accusations are coming from former trustees that are pushing their own vindictive agenda. A successful trustee, I have the floor. A successful trustee has to be open-minded, a good listener, and has to be able to balance competing interests and objectives that are always in the best interest of the village. But most importantly, a village trustee must have integrity, even if it means challenging what may be viewed as the status quo. Having the courage to speak up and challenge an assertion with respect is part of this job. Adopting Ordinance 21-033 is about moving our village in the right direction. It's about having an independent legislative counsel to advise the trustees on matters relating to our legislative duties. It's about making the process and the intended policies better and more effective. This is no way an attempt to disrespect the duties of our village attorney or our mayor, but to provide our community with the benefit of impartial and informed advice that is sometimes unduly influenced by a mayor-village attorney relationship. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan?
Now, how do I top all that? Going back to a few of the things, I didn't prepare any document. I don't have anything to read off of a piece of paper. Going back to Trustee Laha and Trustee Pasmino and the second opinion, all of us in this room have gone somewhere for a second opinion, a lot of times for things that are very important to ourselves and to make the right decisions. So going back to the second opinion, I think having a second opinion and the separation between the village, the legislative council and the attorney is only going to benefit everybody in this room. Legislative council isn't just for a few trustees, it's for the complete board. So let's not get that diluted through some of the conversation here that it's only going to represent a few people here. It is for the whole village board. And then our attorney that we have now is still going to stay. Now, if we go back, we did ask early on and talked about legislative council before. We were I felt we were kind of ignored. So that's why it got to this point today. We have a budget. You talk about being fiscally responsible. It doesn't mean we're going to go over that budget that's already in the general funding to accommodate that and the costs that come with it. So some of the questions that wouldn't be asked of Eric that are asked of the legislative council will be a blended cost. Now, if we make a mistake and we don't try to get a second opinion and we create a condition where we end up spending more money in the long run. I'm sure everybody in this room has come across that themselves. If you take and you don't kind of prepare yourself and go for that second opinion, and then you make the wrong decision, what you end up doing is spending more money in the long run instead of saving. This board and the trustees I work with are fiscally responsible. This has nothing to do with being fiscally irresponsible. Rose just pointed it out. We are not the only ones that are seeking this kind of representation. If I am correct, this is a democracy. And in a democracy, we vote for the things we want as a group. If the majority wants something, then the democracy part of it has been told by all the trustees here what they want. If there's the minority that doesn't want that, then if there's an extra cost, then the minority is creating the extra cost. Because in a democracy, the people that carry the votes are the ones that should be taken into consideration. So that's where I'm at with it, and thank you. That is the end of my comment.
Thank you. You got anything here? Ruben, some of the things that you had said that you feel uncomfortable. What do you feel uncomfortable about?
I feel that sometimes, not only for myself, but my fellow trustees, that some decisions...
I'm just asking for you. I just want your comment on it.
Oh, sure. I feel sometimes that there are occasions that I'm not well versed on certain things, especially on the legal aspect, and that might be maybe taken advantage of. And there's no way for me to know otherwise. Right. Robert's rules is one. I mean, I'm not a parliamentarian by any means. Right. And that to me is very important. Sometimes we can't defend ourselves or
but about
put
what?
Something out there, just in general.
Well, you said that your group and you have felt uncomfortable about something, but you're not telling me anything that you're uncomfortable about what happens here, because we are pretty open, we are very transparent. And I never said, no, you couldn't have a second. I said, you're going to have a problem if you have a second, because to most people, there's no need to hire two people to do the exact same job. But I've never said no, have I?
Well, I said that in my statement, that you allowed us to go ahead and try it out to see how we like it, and we're telling you...
It isn't two people doing the same
job. Wait.
Point of order. You know what? Can we call the roll?
The mayor still has the floor right now.
I'm making a motion to call the roll.
There's a motion on the floor.
Second.
And what do you want to call on the roll right now?
What we just talked about.
He's calling the question.
All right. So, what's the question? Oh, just for Rubens?
No, the motion to approve the ordinance.
Without the mayor being allowed to speak?
He spoke earlier. There's a call to the question, second to the motion.
All right. Can you call the motion, or can you call the?
Yes. Trustee Reinders? Aye. Trustee Consolino?
Aye.
Trustee Fialko?
Aye.
Trustee Laha?
Aye.
Trustee Pazmino?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
No.
And I would be a definite no. So I make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
Oh, yeah, you have to do the motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
What about,
There was one more item.
Yeah.
Oh, I-4.
No, do we have an I-4? We had new business and old business.
No, actually, we have the accounts payable that you moved to from.
Right, I know, that's why I said I-4.
All right, John, do you want to go ahead and get the accounts payable? Go through, that's the question we have right now.
So we have the schedule of accounts payable.
Consider for approval ordinance number 21. No, that's not it. Consider the approval for accounts payable for the period of July 16th, 2021 through July 29th, 2021 in the amount of $774,981.18. So do I have a motion to talk about it?
So motion.
Second.
Discussion.
Hold on.
That is a motion to approve, correct?
All right. The question I have, John, if you'd be able to help me out with that, when it comes down to the invoice with the mud jacking on page 9. We have something that was on there for a vendor total of $13,904. I don't remember us being involved in that, and I'm not sure what it was for.
That's Public Works, field work. 10 is the general fund, 55 is Public Works. I could get you copies of that. It was, it was approved, Public Works invoice. If you want to pull it from here, we can pull it and put it.
I'd like to hold off on paying that bill till we can be informed on that one.
Sure. We could strike that one, and that's why these check dates are represented as July 29th. That way we have the opportunity to pull things, so we'll
And the invoice date is the 16th of July.
Okay.
Got it. So I'm looking for legislative advice here on how to separate that from the...
Who made the motion to pay the bills? Who made the motion to pay the bills?
Gina, who made the motion?
No.
Consolino? Was
Yes.
it? Trustee Consolino?
Yes.
So, do you amend your motion to
Yes, I'll amend.
remove the bill
Yes.
that Trustee Fialko talked about?
Yes.
You second that, Trustee Pazmino?
Yes, I do. I second.
There you go.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Roll call? Yeah. Yeah.
Trustee Laha?
I'm sorry, can I have clarification exactly on what we are voting on? We're voting to table each one.
We're voting,
One bill.
yeah, we're talking about the accounts payable.
Okay.
We're removing one bill from it that,
We're removing one bill, I see. All right,
$13,000.
thank you for the clarification. Aye.
Trustee Reinders?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Consolino?
Aye.
Trustee Fialko?
Aye.
Trustee Pazmino?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we have Clark here to discuss mosquitoes. So if you want to come up to the microphone and...
Your Honor, Village Trustees, thank you for inviting me this evening. I'm Jack Thenish with Clark Mosquito Control. We're based in Roselle, Illinois. We're a vertically integrated company that we manufacture the products used for mosquito control and distribute them throughout the world on a global basis. We do work with the World Health Organization, with the Centers for Disease Control. We have 2 laboratories and one facility in Roselle, Illinois, and an operational facility in Roselle, another facility in St. Charles, where we're rearing mosquitoes and doing some biological work for Centers for Disease Control, CDC, as well as the American Mosquito Control Association. It's the only form of pest control that we do, and we do consider ourselves experts at it. We do emergency response to hurricanes and floods throughout the United States as well. I was just, asked briefly to come tonight and explain some of the program. I'd like to just do kind of a thumbnail sketch of the program, and I think it may answer some questions, and then we could open it up to some questions. I've also brought some, extensive literature on the product, on the program, the products, and frequently asked questions and things like that. So we've been reminded, we do mosquito control for 2 reasons. We do mosquito control for nuisance control as well as for public health protection. We've been reminded here recently of why we do mosquito control for public health. As you know, we've found some West Nile virus positive mosquitoes in Will County. There's, in addition to your community, there's also the Lockport area. This is not really nothing that was unexpected this year when we saw the heat and the humidity. To give you an example, we've had, I believe there's roughly 10 counties in Illinois: Cook, DuPage, Lake, now Will, and we expect to, Kane, I believe as well, Kane in the city of Geneva just in the last 24 hours. So in the last 24 hours, we've seen 7 or 8 more positives. The program is really based, it's a 4-part program. We're based in really what we call general services, surveillance and monitoring, larval control, and adult control. To understand mosquito control, you really have to back up and really understand the mosquito life cycle. They go through 4 stages in their life cycle, from an egg stage, which is microscopic, to a larval stage. Then they move into a pupal stage, which is a resting stage. They do not ingest or take anything in that stage. They hatch just much like a caterpillar to a butterfly. They do a metamorphosis into an adult flying mosquito, which is what 99% of the population would think of a flying adult mosquito. That's just in the adult stage. For that life cycle to be complete, we need standing, stagnant water. So if you get anything from tonight's presentation, please take it, this is a biological process. We get the sun and the rain and the grass grows. Well, the same thing's happening with the insect population. So we need standing, stagnant water in the Midwest between 7 to 10 days, 7 to 14 days, depending on our exterior and temperature. The perfect environment for any insect, for a mosquito as well, is called the tropical environment, and that is defined by 80-80, 80 degrees Fahrenheit, 80% relative humidity. That life cycle, that 4-stage life cycle from egg to adult, will be complete in 4 days in a constant 80% relative humidity, 80 degrees Fahrenheit, would take place in 4 days. So again, when we have an overnight low tonight of 75, it's closer to 5 to 7 days. Every 5 to 7 days, untreated water, roadside ditch, large cattail marsh, and this could be a wheelbarrow left upright, the kiddie pool, rowboat, canoe, you name it, anywhere, clogged gutter, that can all potentially breed mosquitoes. So what we start when we look at a community like Homer Glen, we look at the village and we take a boundary map and we work off a topographical map. These are GIS topographical maps, and we're looking for low depressions, anywhere water would stagnate. Again, it's stagnant water, and again, a roadside ditch. The wave action in a lake, well, the female mosquito will not lay their eggs there. It has to be standing, stagnant water. So every roadside ditch, every cattail marsh within the village is charted and graphed and mapped out, and that is inspected roughly on a 30-day interval throughout June, July, and August. And they're treated with products that are what are called larvicides. Larvicides are larval control products. These are not, they are an insecticide. They kill the pest, they kill an insect, but they are not a petroleum base or the MSDS sheet's not a reactive or flammability or anything like that. This is really, they ingest it in the larval stage, they filter feed in that larval stage, and it reacts with the pH balance in their stomach lining, and it rots out their stomach lining. It's called a biological control. That's one for the cattail marsh, roadside ditches. The manhole covers, the open street catch basin. This was a big lesson learned in the 2005, in many of the West Nile outbreaks that we had in the city. We've had two of the largest West Nile outbreaks in the city of in the Chicagoland area. We had a very large St. Louis encephalitis outbreak in 1975, and then we had 05, 2010, 26, 2007. We had one of the largest West Nile virus outbreaks in the area. So the I&M Canal, a lot of this area was reclaimed and hand dug for drainage control, so it can revert back to its natural habitat. So these sites are treated, and on a 30-day interval, that product lasts a 30-day interval. The manhole covers last really season long. That's a slow release tablet that's placed in the manhole covers to kill it in the larval stage. In addition to that, we do we're big in what is called a surveillance and monitoring. So we have traps, 145 throughout the Chicagoland area, that give us a feel of what's the population of the mosquito level in Will County and in Homer Glen and the surrounding communities. We're in the Homer Township, Lockport, Romeoville actually has a designated taxing body, a mosquito abatement district, and this is where some of this testing. The Will County Health Department does the testing of the capturing these live Culex female mosquitoes, and they carry the viremia in their salivary gland, and those are ground into a test, and put in a test tube and a centrifuge, and they can tell into parts per billion if they're carrying West Nile virus or not. And this is what they're referring to when the health department found these positives. Once that is detected and found, we move into what's called the adult control. And again, this is probably what 99% of the people think of the truck spraying down the street. And it's really a small portion of what we do. The adult control is an immediate knockdown of the mosquitoes in the air at that time. And we have three of those in the program for the community. And we can, as you know, we've been in northern Illinois here, we can get the 500-year flood every 3 to 5 years. So there's years where we may have more, we may have less. We were doing very, very well with, we went from 2020 to the wettest May on record and the second wettest June on record to the driest May on record in 2021. And then we had, where you were in Will County had more than the northern counties, had rain in 10 days from roughly June 10th to June 20th or so, more rain than we had from January 1 to in the 6 months. We get that standing water, we add heat, and 10 to 14 days later in the Midwest, we get a bumper crop of mosquitoes. So unfortunately, that's the position we were in. We responded with 2 of these adult mosquito control treatments. They were timed perfectly. We did one just last week. The temperature and the humidity they're very, very effective at night. The mosquito control, that adult control, is only done in the evening because that's when the mosquitoes are active at night. They're nocturnal. They feed at night. Their food is not. Many people think our our red blood is their food. The protein in our red blood fertilizes fertilizes the female's eggs, and that's how they lay more eggs. So their food is plant nectar. So you can do a little test next time you're at a softball game, a picnic. You shake the shrubbery, the heavily foliated area. You'll see a cloud of mosquitoes come out. They're about 86% water, and they hide and harbor in that area because the sun would dry them out to shield themselves. And then they migrate out at night, and they don't care cat, squirrel, dog, deer, human, any higher form of mammalian life they will feed upon. And their sense of smell is very great. It's when we exhale carbon dioxide. That's what they find. That is their attractant. And that's the theory behind off and the other repellent. It's just a repellent of smell that they do not like.
I'd like to ask a question. Jack, permission?
Yes.
Thank you so much for responding to our emergency call a couple of weeks ago while everybody was on Facebook worried about the mosquitoes, and they were crazy. It was during the day that was taking place. You responded right away, and I appreciate that you took the time to fit us into your busy schedule during the season. In the meantime, when that message was put out to the public, there were some questions. And a few of those, one, it's Anvil that you use, the product, right?
Correct.
Okay, and with that product too, and the mosquitoes you treat it at night when the mosquitoes are active, but also the bees and the butterflies are not active at that time. And that's where some of the questions came in, is the bees and the butterflies, how does it affect the pollinators? And if we could, I read much of your material on your website, again, Clark, CLARKE.com, for everybody that's listening. There's an abundance of information there, but check, if you could help us out with the pollinator question.
Absolutely. The bees are in their hives at night, so they're not as susceptible to the spray. Again, the beneficial insects are really not active during the day, the pollinators. So it is also, the delivery system is called ultra low volume cold aerosol mist. It's a fancy word for, it is shattering 4 ounces of insecticide over 1 acre. So it's extremely low dose. It's ultra low volume dosage rate. It is not harming anything larger than a mosquito. So the bees and some of the, the butterflies and that, again, are resting at night, and it is not harming anything larger than a mosquito.
Aren't there some studies on your website also that reflect that?
There are, and
the residents can go and look up on.
Please do. Please, Clark.com. There's also a wealth of information on Illinois Department of Public, idph.org, and you can /West Nile, search West Nile virus, IDPH West Nile, search / West Nile virus, cdc.gov West Nile virus. This is done throughout the world, and there's just universities, reams of studies. There's another AMCA.org, which is American Mosquito Control Association. So there's a wealth of information on that. There's university studies being done, as we speak.
Thank you, sir.
And with that product as well. So again, the theory is that the heat, as we get hot and we get into a drier period now, the mosquitoes and the birds, it's any mammal, but unfortunately the migratory West Nile virus comes back is reintroduced into the environment every year on migratory birds. So they're what we call the reservoir, and the mosquito is just the vector, the go-between. So it's like so many other things in life, you're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. That mosquito that bit that bird, again, the viremia lives in her salivary glands, and then you're in the wrong place, you get bit by either that mosquito, or then why we see this, the second half of the summer is we're at more of a risk, is that that female can then lay about 1,000 eggs or so, and that's in vitro. Those like a crack cocaine baby, those mosquitoes are then infected. So we see a higher percent of mosquitoes as the summer goes on. So we'll as long as we have the heat, we're gonna see, especially extreme heat like this, we're gonna see more of it. The theory is that the migratory birds need the water for the bird bath, and the mosquitoes obviously need the water to lay their eggs in. They're forced into a tighter living environment, and that transmission from the mosquito biting the bird and that virus transmission is amplified in a drier period. So they kind of go from like a 40-acre estate to an apartment, closer living quarters into an urban environment. So I know I'm throwing a lot at you. You may know more about mosquitoes than you ever wanted to know, but please, we have Clark Portal, P-O-R-T-A-L, the Clark Portal. Any resident can register, and we will notify them. We'll actually call you. We can send you a text on your cell phone. We could send you an email prior to coming out. So you can register on the Clark Portal. For the people that are not, as tech savvy, we have the mosquito hotline is 1-800-942-2555, and they can actually press 0 and talk to a live human being. So,
thank you, sir. That was very, very informative.
Thank you.
I appreciate you taking the time to come out and explain.
My pleasure. And
Thank you.
We're based in Roselle, Illinois, and if everyone wants to see our facility, we're more than happy to do a tour of our facility as well. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
John, you've got the floor.
Okay. Okay. George and Beth, you've seen this before. This is our emergency operations plan draft for the village. As you can see, it says Lincoln Way Regional Emergency Operations Plan. The reason for that is the county had All municipal plans go to the county for approval. The county decided that since it was so difficult for a lot of municipalities to write their own plans, even with a template, that the county wanted to do regional plans because they felt that any large-scale issue would end up being regional anyway. So anyway, so there we go. Okay, these are the list of the stakeholders. These are all your public safety officials for the village. Obviously, we have the former Glen Emergency Management Agency, the village itself, the Will County Sheriff, former Fire Protection District, Northwest Palmer Fire District, Mosquito Fire District, New Lenox Fire District, Portland Fire District, and the Homer Glen Public Works. Depending on what part of the community you're in, we were covered by 5 different fire districts, which also adds to the number of people that we have to have involved in this plan. What does an emergency operations plan do? Okay, pretty simply, what it does is it brings together the team and the department resources whose involvement in the event will expedite coordination of municipal assistance to the impacted area. And that's right out of the book. So, this is not a one-time thing. It's called a preparedness cycle, where we create the plan. Once the plan is approved, the stakeholders work together, we organize, we equip if we have to, we train the plan, we exercise the plan, and then we evaluate and make improvements, and then we update the plan again. It's basically a 2-year cycle. So, okay, now what we're going to do is, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, because you guys won't like me. So we're just going to go over the individual sections. There's a base plan. Base plan describes the structure and process that form the region's approach to all hazards incident management. And it brings together the federal, state, local, private sector, and non-governmental organizations. And it also includes an overview of the planning environment, assumptions, roles and responsibilities, concept of operations, incident management actions, and plan maintenance provisions. This is not a if-then kind of plan. It doesn't say, if there's a fire, put water on it. If there's a bad guy, put him in handcuffs. That's not what this does. The individual tactical plans of the first responders is the if-then stuff. So, there's 2 different kinds of annexes. There's functional annexes, which detail the purpose, scopes, and structures and responsibilities of the municipal agencies, and support annexes, which provide guidance and describe the functional processes and administrative requirements necessary to ensure efficient and effective implementation of the EOP. Just real quick down the contents, right? Glossary of terms, that's pretty simple, right? Everybody knows what that's going to be. The Appendix 2 is the acronyms. The acronyms are just all the alphabet soup. Authorities and references list all the legal, the laws, all the requirements from the state and the federal level. Annex 1 is direction and control. That provides an overview on the means we use to direct and control the activities of government that are essential to saving lives, property, and restore government services. And it also has job aids in there, which is the chief elected official, village manager, and the EMA coordinator, and it gives you steps for local proclamations. Okay, next, communications. Federal, state, and local roles in communications and interoperability. Okay, emergency public information. It gives us policies and procedures to disseminate accurate, timely, and understandable information and instructions to the public. Disaster intelligence and damage assessment. It assesses the situation, determines the extent, initial damage assessment, and determine what outside help is needed. Evacuation, pretty simple, right? It's steps we take and who's responsible for evacuation. Mass care, emergency assistance, and housing and human services. A lot of those things are things we have MOUs for, like the Red Cross, Will County Health Department, things of that nature, okay? Public health and medical services. Next, mental, physical, and environmental health. Fatality management, that pretty much explains itself. Resource management, that's how we, it's not our own resources, it's outside, but how we address outside resources, okay? And spontaneous volunteers, which is always an issue when you come to large-scale incidents. And then you come up to, the next one is law enforcement, then there's fire, rescue, EMS, and then public works and engineering. So those are also self-explanatory. So I tried to blast through it so you guys don't have to sit here all night listening to me drone on about cool EOP stuff. But do you guys have any questions about that part of it?
No, all we know is you're doing a really good job, John.
Thank you.
Yes. Thanks, John.
Okay, in the front of your,
Need us to sign?
yeah, there's an SOP, a draft SOP for SOP number 7.
17?
17, sorry. What this does is this goes through, sorry. What this does is lay out steps for the board and when the EOP is activated, okay? So during normal, so I'm going to kind of read through this real quick. During normal operations, the village board is primarily responsible for setting policy and communicating with their constituents. Elected officials should have a clear understanding of how the staff responds to emergencies and disasters, what resources are available, and the limitations and capabilities of those resources. Elected officials are responsible for ensuring public safety and the welfare of the citizenry and must have a clear understanding of the appropriate roles in each of the phases of emergency management. The first phase of emergency management is mitigation. Elected officials should adopt public policy that will mitigate the impact disasters may have on the community. Mitigation efforts can include stormwater management, promoting sound land use planning on known hazards, and adopting comprehensive building codes to ensure compliance with applicable standards. Okay, next is preparedness. Elected officials should ensure that their municipalities are prepared for a disaster. Some examples of preparation include promoting a qualified and capable emergency management program, development and adoption of an emergency operations plan, training all staff and village board members, and investing in infrastructure designed to warn the public of disasters, such as outdoor warning sirens or remote radio stations. Response. The primary responsibility is to coordinate the response to a disaster falls on the chief elected official, which is the mayor or alternate. You'll see that a lot in the EOP, where you'll have public works director or alternate, police chief or alternate, fire chief or alternate, because George could be on vacation, that's why you have a president pro tem. You'll have John Toyers is our finance director, he's going to have an alternate. So there's alternates to all the positions, so everything can be covered under any circumstances. Okay, and the emergency management. The role of the village trustees during the response to a disaster is support. And during the recovery phase of a disaster, elected officials should expect to focus much of their effort on securing and authorizing funding, including reimbursements for eligible expenses needed for recovery efforts. Elected officials should also review existing and/or public policies regarding mitigation measures. Now, the concept of operations of this SOP is village trustee should ensure the safety of themselves and their families have been addressed. So if you're, always make sure that yourself and your families are covered first. And the first responders do the same thing, our emergency management personnel do the same thing. Village trustees should be cognizant of the Open Meetings Act. Communications between a group of trustees may be considered an Open Meetings Act violation even during an emergency, because there's no emergency rule for that. Village trustees should become trained in the National Incident Management System. which is called NIMS, Emergency Management, and the National Framework. Basic training is available at no cost for FEMA. It provides foundational knowledge on the tenets of emergency management. We'll cover that in the next, after this. Village trustees should direct inquiries and requests for information or comments to the village manager. It is absolutely critical that one coordinated message be presented. Individual comments and messages quickly lead to uncontrollable rumors, creating unnecessary distractions for responders. Village trustees should avoid making public statements or comments regarding the emergency or disaster. Public statements should be unified and shared with all elected officials. Village trustees should inquire to the village manager for support roles that may need to be addressed. This will vary depending on the incident. Village trustees should not spontaneously respond to a scene of an emergency or disaster. If a response is necessary, it will be requested through the chief elected official, the village manager, or the EMA coordinator. We just put this together, and you guys will bring this forward again for you guys to approve it or not. And this just kind of gives you guys a starting point, right? So everybody's on the same page.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Great presentation.
Okay, the fun's not over yet. Okay, any questions on the SOP?
No.
Okay. Village official and staff training. Okay, so the basic stuff that everybody should have is IS 100.C, which is Introduction to the Incident Command System. That gives you the basic knowledge so you understand the sticks and boxes, how things are built, why things are done, the way they're done. Okay? The other class is IS 700.B, which is Introduction to the National Incident Management System, which is called NIMS. NIMS is a universal, across the board, everybody in the whole country is supposed to be operating off this same platform. Additional training, if you wanted to go beyond, okay, is IS 200, which is Basic Incident Command for Initial Response. That's like the step up from IS 100 to IS 200. And then there's IS 800, which is the National Response Framework and Introduction, which kind of explains how the federal government responds to incidents and how those things are done, which is also a good thing to know. And you can go on and on and on and on and on in training. You know, there's 300, 400. I mean, that's my list, and I still have more stuff to do. So it goes on and on and on. Our EMA members are all trained in these and more. So anyway, this is where you would go. It's the FEMA Emergency Management Institute independent study, and it's the website is training.fema.gov/is. You have to register for a FEMA student ID, and then once you do that, you go to the course list, and you'll find IS 100 and IS 700. And if you do, and these are all online things, there's no classes to go to. I mean, once you get past these four, it's all traipsing around the state going to classes. But, so if you complete it, you get a certificate, turn it in, or get us a copy so we can have it. So, because technically we're all supposed to be NIMS trained, okay? So, okay, any questions on the training? And obviously, if you have a question later or a concern or whatever, let me know. And obviously, you know, because I'm trying to blow through this because I know you guys had a lot of stuff going on today, and I don't want to, you know. Okay, last little bit of this is just a quick little video on opening an emergency operations center.
When an emergency occurs, it's too late to start planning a response. How do you plan for the unexpected? The first 48 hours is critical. Whether it's stopping a disease outbreak or preventing injury and death, you have to start to plan before the emergency occurs, and when it hits, act fast. The ability of your emergency response plan to sustain and succeed in any emergency is dependent on the strength and depth of its roots. A clearly defined chain of command and organizational structure, effective resource management, and advanced planning are important aspects of an emergency response. An incident management system, or IMS, is an internationally recognized model based on these principles. IMS provides the root structure needed to grow your emergency response plan and make it strong enough to withstand natural disasters, disease outbreaks, or any hazard. An Emergency Operations Center, or EOC, is the place from which you run your incident management system. The EOC is where you collect information, make decisions about priorities, and coordinate action and communication. EOCs can expand as the response unfolds and scale down as the emergency is under control. EOCs can be big or small, complex or simple, implemented just as effectively in rural as in urban settings. EOCs are necessary and achievable. Simply put, an EOC and any function within it is people, systems, and things.
And that's it.
Okay, John. Thank you. Is there any old business?
Old business, yes. Sir, there is. I hate to do this to tonight. Under old business, we are in the process, still in the process, or somewhere near in the process with Public Works Director hiring. Some comments were made tonight. Where are we at with that, sir? Public Works Director hired.
Where are we at with what?
Where are we at in that process?
We hired someone.
Oh, we hired someone. Okay. I have a question then for the lawyer. It comes down to manager 45.8A. And I'll read that very briefly. The village manager shall make a recommendation to the corporate authorities, that being this board, with respect to hiring of any department director or manager whose appointment is subject to the advice and consent to the village board. I'm looking for legal to help us out here to explain that.
The Public Works Director is not an appointment that's subject to the advice and consent of the village board. There are village employees and positions here that are.
So what you're saying is...
You want me to answer the question?
Oh, go ahead. I thought you were... Sorry.
There are employees here that are subject to the advice and consent of the village board. The Public Works Director is not one of them. So as a result, the village manager has the authority to hire and terminate those positions.
Okay. He was hired as the Public Works Director, right? So in 45.8A, how are you separating the two?
A department director or manager whose appointment is subject to the advice and consent of the village board. So if it's a director or manager who you, as a village board, have to consent to. When you look at other positions in the village ordinance, there are specific positions, managers, department directors, what have you. Those positions are subject to the advice and consent of the village board.
Okay. Since this is a brand new position though, sir, and it's not really in the code, and it says director, how are you separating a new Public Works Director when that verbiage is not in the village code? And how does that bypass this board at this point when this is a brand new position, and yet it says director in here, and yeah, you're saying Public Works, but we have never had this position before. So how are you separating it from what you're calling the other hirees that would fall under that category? This is a brand new position, right?
I believe that the director, this position for Public Works Director did not require, when it was created, did not require the advice and consent of the village board.
When was it created?
I believe, was it before Carrie left?
I'm not remember.
No, it's just being created.
No, I believe the position has been created, it hasn't been filled yet.
No, the position is a brand-new position and has never been filled before. So he was hired as a public director, whoever we hired, or whoever you hired. The thing is, I don't see how you're able to say that when we haven't yet had that person staffed in this village before. There has never been that position before. So my question, I'd actually like to ask for this hiring to be put in abeyance until we figure this out. Because at this point, I think with the new position that it is, and just going and hiring somebody when we have the verbiage here to clearly guide us, and being that it's a new position that's never been filled, I think we need to get to the bottom of it. I'd like to put it in abeyance. I'm sure whoever you've hired, or whoever the village hired, or the interim village manager hired, I'm sure they're well qualified. But bypassing this point in our village code, I think is not the right direction to go, being a new position. I'd like to make that motion if I could. Am I able to make that motion on this since this is brand new, to put this in abeyance?
You've asked for my opinion, I've given you my opinion.
Right, and now I'm asking you, can I make the motion to put the hiring in abeyance?
If you also want to put the village at risk, because now you've hired someone, and this board is now stepping into an area that overstepping its bounds, if you will. Because
I don't see it as that.
you asked for my opinion, I'm telling you my legal opinion. Now, maybe your legislative attorney, when everything's said and done, might give you a different opinion. However, right now, I represent the village, I'm telling you my opinion. This is not a position that was created that stated that the village board that is approved by the advice and consent of the village board. That is not in there as far as I'm aware. So that position does not have that language in it for the job description or for the creation of the job that I'm aware. If that's the case, that means that this board does not have the ability to review or consent to that hiring.
I would like to make the motion to put the hiring in abeyance until this is sorted out and we figure out exactly what we're talking about. Since this is a brand new position and we have not been asked, we have not been counseled along the way. We were told this information kind of like at the last minute. So under 45-8A, I'd like to call that we put the hiring of the new village or the new public works director in abeyance until we have further discussion on it and maybe get a second opinion.
I'd also point out that you can't take action on that you can't take action on it at this point because it's not on the agenda. It wasn't posted 48 hours prior to the posting. Or that item,
old business.
Exactly, but in order to take action on an item, it needs to be on the agenda. Not under just simply old business. There has to be something that specifically relates to that particular item. So you're not able to take action on it to begin with.
Okay. If that's your advice at this point, that we'll go with that. Do we have legal counsel here that we voted in?
I believe the ordinance has not been approved and finalized. It's been approved, but it isn't in pamphlet form and it isn't official yet.
I was just curious, did you ask to review any of the resumes that were submitted? Because I asked.
I asked as well.
We all asked, I asked as well.
I didn't receive anything.
We were not given anything as far as resumes in. If you asked for them, that's great that you did, but Eric himself says that you're not supposed to be involved in that process.
Right, and that's probably why we didn't get them.
And so that's...
Right, because I didn't get them either. No, I asked.
Oh, you asked,
yeah.
okay.
I didn't receive them either.
I think it's very confusing at this point, and with the code the way it's written, and this being a new hire, I believe that we would be wrong with moving forward and hiring a new public works director at this point. If we go through the right process and we find out that is the correct process, I think we could do that. And I'm sure whoever you've looked at.
And he's probably already given notice, so you're kind of playing with somebody's livelihood to it's just not right. It's just not right.
Can we put in the agenda for the next meeting, at least a discussion on this process, so this doesn't happen again? Maybe revise the SOP or the ordinance? Because it looks like there's a gray area.
I would welcome that idea.
Can I get a second? A motion? Or is that something?
I think that's more of a consent item.
All right, so,
It's a discussion.
no, this, okay, so,
I think as trustee Consolino did when she sent out that ordinance that someone drafted about the legislative council, simply bringing it to the village manager and asking it to be put on the agenda would be sufficient.
So you're saying we cannot ask the other lawyer at this point? You're saying that he cannot be asked because it hasn't been signed off on yet?
He hasn't been retained. I mean, I don't know why you'd be asking.
Well, we voted on it tonight. We brought him in. So what is it? What are we lacking at this point?
The ordinance hasn't been finalized and approved. The mayor may decide to veto it. He has until the next election or the next regular meeting if he wanted to.
He had said that he's not going to block it. He said that earlier.
Regardless, it has to be, you can ask him. It has to be approved and finalized and published in pamphlet form. So.
And as far as hiring before.
Before 1 second too, I think it's a matter of situation where you're going to ask your new legislative attorney, you're going to simply hand him the ordinance and ask him for his legal opinion right here, just in real time. I think you'd want to actually give him the opportunity to review it, maybe research it.
I do.
Okay.
But I was hoping that we would be able to get the same time and put it in abeyance, but I got resistance with that. So that's where we're at.
I'm not giving you resistance. I'm giving you legal advice. You can't take action on items that aren't on the agenda.
Understood.
Period.
Okay, is there any new business?
Yes, one thing under new business. It's been brought to our attention that we possibly have a salt issue. So under new business, I'd like us to look into.
Under a what?
Salt for the road district.
Okay.
Oh, like,
So it's been brought to my attention that we possibly have an issue there with salt, ordering salt, and just like to put it as under new business for our next meeting.
For the road district or for the public works department?
That'll have to be discussed. I'm not sure at this point where we're at.
from my understanding, it was the Public Works Department.
All right. Well, there's no answer on that, so there won't be any executive session because we don't have Matt here, and we don't have Christine here. Seeing some of these issues that have been brought up by people here, we need them here if we're going to talk matters. So I need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
John, you want me to do this?